Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here. I have just returned from TCO Performance Center, another practice out there today, and it started off slowly because the Vikings moved their schedule a little bit to do their walkthrough period right before doing the harder practice with the full pads. And then they did their team reps and the one-on-ones, and then it got going, and then it turned out to be actually a very intense practice today with situational drills, with red zone drills, 11 on 11s. So a full practice with lots of things to discuss this evening. So I've got my notes from practice to run through, a couple of sound clips from Kevin O'Connell to talk about, and of course, as always, answering your Vikings training camp questions. Let me work my way up to how the quarterbacks played. And why don't we start out with just talking about a few other little things that I took note of today. How about the wide receiver 3 battle that we had more or less declared that Jalen Nailor was wide receiver 3. He's locked in. He's all set. But today, Brandon Powell was getting a lot of the first team reps at the wide receiver position, and Jalen Nailor was actually working in more with the second team. So I thought that was interesting, and maybe we shouldn't just say locked in, Jalen Nailor's the man, all good to go. Also, Lucky Jackson, I think, has separated himself a bit as the wide receiver 4. He made another play today. On the interior of the defensive line, I get a lot of questions about Levi Drake Rodriguez, and for the most part, LDR has been playing with the second team, and I've noticed him because of his size and his natural go-get-itness. He's got a lot of rambunctiousness to his game, energy, enthusiasm, so he stands out there. But with Jonathan Bullard taking a veteran day, it was Levi Drake Rodriguez working in with the second team, and for a player that comes along with with the first team, and for a player that comes along with a lot of intrigue, as Levi Drake Rodriguez does, when even though he's a 7th round pick, he starts working into the first team. Despite someone being out, maybe Jonathan Bullard would normally be there and he wouldn't have gotten those reps. But the fact that he was next man up in a group of a lot of different guys who are jockeying for position certainly caught my eye. Jonah Williams has also worked into that position as well. Jerry Tillery has been on the defensive line a lot, but maybe a good sign for Levi Drake Rodriguez. And he has also stood out in the one-on-one drills that we have had a chance to see as well. So that was notable. As far as the first team, second team corners, Fabian Morrow, folks, is your cornerback. I think he's been working in a ton with the first team in just a couple of days of being a Minnesota Viking. There were also times where we saw a Caleb Evans to go along with Byron Murphy. Brian Murphy is my friend. Byron Murphy as the nickel corner and Fabian Morrow on the other side. Now, what that would mean when Shaq Griffin returns, I'm not sure. But Kevin O'Connell, after initially being pretty enthusiastic about Shaq Griffin coming back, hedged a little bit more on when he would be able to return. And it started to sound more like it might take a while, and that Fabian Morrow and Caleb Evans are going to get the majority of the work throughout training camp, along with Byron Murphy Jr. as your 3 starting cornerbacks. And the other thing that I noticed today as well is, unsurprisingly, this has pushed Andrew Booth Jr. all the way down on the depth chart, but Jay Ward has continued to get quite a few reps with the second team along with Dwight McGlothern. And so we're seeing the corners separate themselves a bit to the point where it is McGlothern over a couple of other guys who have a little more experience. And Morrow is getting into the first team, and Jay Ward is staying with that second team at cornerback. And maybe they just want to see an extended look at Jay Ward as a corner. So after he had started out his career as a safety, played a little bit of each position last year in the preseason, to have him move to corner and them appear to be fairly happy with that is notable. Another thing that happened today was Harrison Smith had a veteran day, and Theo Jackson continued to be the star of this training camp. I got to get my article out on Theo Jackson tomorrow because he has almost every single day stepped up, making big plays. The way the coaches talk about him as well across the board, they have been super impressed with Theo Jackson, and you just already felt so good about the safety room. Now you could feel even better that Theo Jackson is able to step in when Harrison Smith is out for the day. So those are just some things that I noticed today. They did a lot of pretty much everything, but they did a lot of running today as well. Ty Chandler getting some work. They did kickoff stuff, which I'm sure you guys have reactions to. So that's kind of a across the roster a little bit look at what was going on today. Also did notice that Blake Cashman under nickel situations was the linebacker who was out there rather than Ivan Pace Jr., which maybe says to me that they look at Blake Cashman as a little more versatile when you're talking about coverage, because it was in coverage situations than Ivan Pace. And then Ivan Pace worked in with the second group in those nickel spots. That's, normal that they're working in a lot of different situational stuff and mixing and matching a bit. But I think Cashman is going to be a little more 3-down linebacker, and they seem to really want to do the nickel corner thing more this year than they did last year, but also have Josh Metellus all over the field playing lots of different roles. It opens up Josh Metellus if you can have a nickel package, because last year he was so often just asked to be the nickel corner. Let me get to a couple of Kevin O'Connell things, and then I'm more or less just getting going here and letting everybody start to get in the room so then we can actually talk about the quarterbacks, which I know everybody wants to hear about. But Kevin O'Connell gave an update on TJ Hockinson and his status.
You referenced TJ Hockinson earlier. Where is he at in his recovery? And we see him running hard.
Every time I see him, working on the side field, it becomes awfully tempting to corner Tyler Williams somewhere in the building and demand answers on when when we'll be able to start implementing him, maybe off the PUP and get him a little bit of work, whether it's just simply individual, some routes on air, start getting him some timing with our quarterbacks. But where he's at, albeit very well ahead of maybe where some of the medical folks thought he would be. There is an injury there that a timeline exists, and we're going to try to stay true to that while also giving him ops to push to maybe shrink that timeline a little bit.
Even in a place where you can start thinking about week one for him?
No, not yet.
Whether it's yes or no?
No, I don't think it would be responsible at this point with where he's at in his rehab to start, even me personally, thinking about, are we going to have him, are we not? Want him focusing on what he can control, which is what he's done an unbelievable job of so far, which is his daily mission of just attacking this thing one day at a time.
And it makes a lot of sense for Kevin O'Connell not to commit to anything in regards to TJ Hockinson, because we don't know exactly when he's going to be fully ready. Personally, I think that being more cautious about Hockinson is a better idea, because it's not just a this year thing. You want the best version of him over multiple seasons. You don't want to rush back for any reason. And there have been times when it comes to the ACLs where I have felt like Delvin Cook is a good example. The guy comes back pretty early. We all talk about how ahead of schedule he is. It's so great that he's back. And then there's a hamstring that goes along with it, or there's another injury. This kind of happened with Mike Hughes, where he had come back from that ACL, and then it seemed like he wasn't quite up to par right away. I think that you want Hockinson to be able to come back to as full strength as he possibly can. And if it takes waiting an extra couple of weeks, that's of course very hard to tell the head coach. No, you can't have TJ Hockinson back, but a patient approach is probably the best one. So let's talk some quarterbacks and start putting those questions in the comment section. So after I talk about the quarterbacks, then I can jump right into your question and comments. It is clear JJ McCarthy is a bust. No, I'm just kidding. Stop it. JJ McCarthy had the rookie day of rookie days today at TCO Performance Center. And I will make sure that I tell you first, before I get into some of the details, that JJ McCarthy has been impressive so far. In the shorts, he was impressive. In his first day of pads, he was impressive. He has looked like somebody that studied really hard and worked really hard to be ready for this training camp. And even when things go wrong, he tries to do something with it, tries to make a play, tries to scramble. He had a play in a red zone drill where things broke down and he scrambled and he found somebody for a touchdown. And I don't want anybody to overreact to hearing this, but it was not on point for today's practice, especially when it came to the situational drill where he completed a couple of short passes, but then got down to the point where the clock was ticking. And what they do is they put on the scoreboard 27-21, 1 minute left, one timeout, and the quarterback's got to go score. And he got it to maybe the 30-yard line and then got sacked, but the referee will decide who's out there, what was a sack, I guess, or the coaches decide what was a sack. So he gets sacked, runs the clock out, and that was pretty much it. Then completed a pass and was not able to get the ball into the end zone. There were also a number of plays today where the ball just didn't get out on time, looked a little bit like his head was spinning. And I suspect that as we go forward on a daily basis, what Kevin O'Connell is trying to do is put more and more and more on JJ McCarthy's plate, make it tougher and tougher, install more and more of the offense, and just see how far along he is and how much he can handle, and then evaluate, okay, did we push too much? Do we need to dial it back a little bit? Do we go too fast for him? Get his reactions and responses to how practice went. So what we might end up seeing on an even weekly basis throughout training camp is one day we go out and we go, wow, yeah, JJ McCarthy looked pretty solid today. Looked like he was in control. And then other days, okay, whatever it was that they were just doing, JJ McCarthy was not all that comfortable with. And that seemed to be the case in this afternoon's practice. So call it his first true, looked like a rookie practice for JJ McCarthy, but he also got his first team rep, which did not go all that good. His first rep was a handoff, and then I think it was on a end around or something. And then his second first team rep, he threw it directly into the arms of Theo Jackson, and he dropped the ball. But it should have been a pretty easy interception for Theo Jackson, and it was not, only because he dropped it. But McCarthy didn't read something right, or was not aggressive enough, or whatever it might have been, but he threw it right to the safety on his first team rep. And you could see him kind of, yeah, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. But it may be some progress that he got in with the first team. And that's exactly what we heard the other day from Kevin O'Connell, that was going to start happening. And it did for all of a grand total of 2 reps. And we'll see how they build on that from here. And that was JJ McCarthy's day. I took notes on each pass, a lot of short stuff, a lot of scrambling, a lot of times that he would have gotten sacked. It was a rookie practice. No, it wasn't as bad as Kellen Mond's practices where he couldn't take the snap. All of you like to ask, wait, did it still look better than Kellen Mond? Yes, of course it did. But at the same time, just one of those reminders that this won't get there as fast as you want it to, that there's going to be maybe a preseason action that you're not blown away with, or there's going to be practices that we come back and report, or fans take videos of, or whatever it's going to be, where you go, that didn't look so good. And that's what it's like to learn something. And one phrase that gets used a lot, and I'm sure all of you have heard it, but it is true and is worth bringing up, is that progress is not linear when it comes to development. It doesn't happen every day where the guy gets a little bit better and better. It's often good day, bad day, good day, good day. You try to stack good days. Today was not one of those for JJ McCarthy, but learn from it, come back, and we'll see how he bounces back tomorrow. And I will say that after he almost threw the interception to Theo Jackson, the next rep was with the second team and he threw a touchdown. He did not let his mistake get on him too much, came back, threw a touchdown, probably his best throw of the day right after that. And I don't think that something like this is going to get JJ McCarthy down too much. He strikes me as a guy who understands that there are days where he's going to be frustrated, and there already were some during minicamp. But if you're comparing, if you went to camp today and only today, and you had to decide up in the stands, Kevin O'Connell said, you know what, forget this. I'm tired of you guys talking about the quarterbacks. Billy in the stands, you get to decide. You just watch practice. Who's starting? Billy would have no trouble with this one. Sam Darnold had an excellent practice, maybe his best of camp. I would say probably his best of camp, especially when it came to the 2-minute drill. He hit a terrific pass to Jordan Addison, kind of an out or corner route, maybe 15, 20 yards down the field, unleashed a beautiful line drive throw in rhythm. And then after that, he hit, he hit, that was one play earlier in practice. This one, now I'm trying to get the order correct. He hit Justin Jefferson first on the final drive. He hit Justin Jefferson first on an in-breaking route that got them a huge gain, set them up, and then found Jordan Addison. I'll get this right. I'm sorry. I was reading the words Jalen Naylor on the comment section. Okay, start again. Here's how it went. Darnold to Justin Jefferson on time, back foot, fired it right over the middle. And then 1 or 2 plays later, Jordan Addison in the end zone, rocket line drive, touchdown throw for Sam Darnold. He looked very confident throwing the ball all day. I think I wrote down 3 or 4 times. I use little descriptions for myself, rocket throw, line drive, things like that. Looked in time, in rhythm. And that's how he looked today. And this is evidence of it's Sam Darnold understanding an offense probably a little bit better. It's also one day and one practice, but Sam Darnold starting to get it. Some mistakes that he made earlier in training camp or a couple practices ago, correcting those, getting the right looks, and just performing better. And Darnold's best showings were against the ones today, not 2s versus 1s the way that it has been before. It was a lot of 1s versus 1s today for Sam Darnold, and he just looked like a quality starting NFL quarterback. And there has been certainly times where the ball has not come out when it's supposed to for Sam Darnold. There was a little more checking down, a little more short stuff for Sam Darnold today that I thought helped him get into some rhythm. And then when he had to unleash the best throws, he really let them go. That has been the story of watching Sam Darnold at training camp. Is there are times while he's under center that you go, come on, man, like get the ball out. Don't try too many things that are kind of crazy or whipping it sidearm or something like that. But when it clicks, it looks extremely good. And this is kind of his career, is that it's not like Sam Darnold has not ever had great moments in his career. He's had big games. And if you go through his game log, you're going to see a lot of games that are sprinkled in where he has good quarterback ratings and where he throws multiple touchdowns and where he is in total command. And even just think about when the Vikings played him in 2021, started off terribly in that game. And then at the end, the light comes on and he starts finding guys left and right. That's what it's been like to watch him during practice. And today was the hands down the best he looked. So if you had to make that decision right now, it would easily be Sam Darnold. You wouldn't even think about it after seeing that practice. But of course, that's not how it's actually going. Instead, we have quite some time to go. We've got 3 preseason games. We've got lots of practices, and we will get to the point where we have this answer on the quarterbacks. But as of right now, Sam Darnold, over the last 2 practices that have been padded, that have been very hard practices. And I will also say that it's a little different maybe than previous years. There have been times where I went, man, are they going to have a physical practice here? But then the last 2 that they've had with a day off in between have ramped that up a bit from where I remember it last year. Maybe that's because there's so many new players from last season that's where they're doing it. Or maybe Kevin O'Connell wants to be a little more locked in going into week 1 than he was last year when he went back and reassessed everything. But these have been hard and physical practices the last 2, and Sam Darnold has looked like an NFL starting quarterback in those last 2 practices, whereas JJ McCarthy has looked like the rookie. Not anything to overreact to, but just that's where it stands as of this moment. And of course, the reason why I am doing a show every night is because that could change anytime now. But I did have a chance, by the way. I'll play you this and then drop some more questions and comments in the comments section, and I will start answering them. But I did have a chance to ask Kevin O'Connell about JJ McCarthy and those 2-minute drills and how valuable they are to him in his progression. Here's what he said.
Last couple. Kevin, when it comes to JJ McCarthy running the 2-minute drills, what do you learn about him when he's running those, or the final drives? What does he learn when he's running those drills?
Yeah, I think it's, a lot of things, Matt. I think it's, the situation for that particular day. How does it change his thought process? But at the same time, the huge goal daily, minute to minute with JJ and all of our quarterbacks right now is, here's the play call. What's my job from a footwork, progression, protection responsibility standpoint? How do I make sure I, quiet the noise in my mind and do my job? And when our guys have done that in camp so far, really good things have happened. And, I think the big thing is, as he starts getting exposed to different things, as the installations get bigger on both sides of the ball, can he stay on top of it and not kind of hit that wall that sometimes hits players at all positions when multiple things stack up, and me as the play caller have a whole call sheet of things at my disposal that I can get to at any time. It's not necessarily those scripted periods, it's those ones where you don't know what's coming, and that's part of the development plan, and making sure he's getting a good amount of work, more percentage-wise, 2s versus 2s, and then less than majority, beyond popular belief, of 2s versus 1s work, and all of it is really good for him, and it's been a really, really good start to training camp for him.
Hopefully it caught his little jab at me for writing an article about how McCarthy was doing 2s versus 1s at the end there, but I think it has been a lot of 2s versus 1s so far this offseason, which is why I wrote about it, and which is why Wes Phillips talked about it the other day. But nonetheless, I think a great explanation there for Kevin O'Connell talking about what those 2-minute drills mean. And the key point there is that O'Connell is not going to make it easy on JJ McCarthy, where they can prepare mentally for what he's going to do in a drill or in an 11-on-11. Instead, he's just going to call something off the call sheet that McCarthy's supposed to know, and then bang, you got to go get it. And at times he's looked good with that. 2 days ago in their practice, he whipped the ball to Lucky Jackson for a first down to end the practice. But then today, much less comfortable, and understanding situations is something that he was really good at, I think, in college. But in the NFL, it's all moving faster. It's all crazier. And today, taking a sack when you have no timeouts, and we are talking about a practice here, folks. So deep breath, but that can't happen, right? That's something that he's got to learn and take with him to go forward. So this is one of those days where tomorrow it becomes important for him to bounce back after that. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts. How's so-and-so looking? If I told you the last 2 practices that Darnold is looking pretty solid and McCarthy is looking more like a rookie, does that change your outlook at all on how you feel like this will play out? Has it moved the needle for you? Do you always think that it should be Darnold no matter what? How do you feel about it? Let's start out with Austin. Says KOC called you Matt. Which do you prefer? Does not matter to me. I will give you the explanation and let other people think of some questions, which is that Matthew Coller, I think, sounds easier to say when I'm doing broadcasting or someone is welcoming me into their show than Matt Coller. I feel like it just runs together. And if you were listening to it, you'd be like, man, what? It just, there's no pause there, just kind of runs into it. And I always thought it sounded like Mac Aller, which I thought is a linebacker, a special teamer, a fullback. So that's why. But as far as what people call me casually, like with Kevin O'Connell, Matt, perfectly fine with that. So there's the full explanation. Julian says, I know people have been talking about getting another running back. What do you think about getting Adrian Peterson? We're off to a hot start here, guys. My name and Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson will not be playing in the NFL again. Definitely not playing for the Minnesota Vikings. No, I do not think he has anything left in the tank. But to your point, the running back situation, not ideal after RB2. And maybe that's just the case with every team. But Kene Nwangwu is RB3, Myles Gaskin after that. Maybe there is somebody in free agency or someone who gets cut by another team that ends up being the other running back, because after Jones and Ty Chandler, if even Jones were to get hurt, Ty Chandler would have to take on the entire workload. You want to have somebody who could at least mix in with him, as opposed to him having to take on every snap if Aaron Jones were to get banged up, because there can't be a ton of confidence right now in the situation. But no, I don't believe that John Randall or Carl Eller or Adrian Peterson will be coming back to play for this team. But if you could pick one player, you'd pick Fran Tarkenton. That's who I would pick. Tycoon says Levi is an interesting prospect. Yes, he most certainly is, because of his size and quickness combination. That's what really stands out. And I think he wears number 50, and he's got long hair, and he's very easy to spot. And so you see him a lot with the hair flying around, and he just has this quickness for size. And he looks like a mauler. He looks like he's just in attack mode all the time. They clearly love his motor and his approach to the game. I know from standing over there waiting for interviews after practice that a lot of times he is working after practice, doing a lot of different things, working on the tackle dummy, giving it swim moves and stuff, ultimate football stuff. But the work ethic that they thought they were going to get when they drafted him appears to be paying off. They kind of need this player. Now, the seventh rounder becoming that guy, it feels like after Ivan Pace made it last year, we just think, well, there's going to be a guy every year who does this. And maybe there will be. Maybe they're just that good at scouting now that Brian Flores is here. But even just a little bit of a situational pass rusher to mix in on 200 snaps would be a big win if the guy was even a little bit dangerous. And he's looked a little bit dangerous so far. Hunter says, getting reps with the first team, Mr. Mankato watch. Oh, 100%. Now, we were having this discussion on the sideline today about Mr. Mankato and some of the favorites, and Lucky Jackson belongs in this discussion. An XFL guy, didn't get into the game last year, may have appeared in a game, but I think you have to have at least a catch if you're going to be disqualified. Like Jalen Naylor can't be Mr. Mankato. He's already had some catches. But a guy like Lucky Jackson, who hasn't really played on the offensive side, he could be that if he has this continued chemistry with J.J. McCarthy that he has had so far throughout training camp. That's one guy to look for. Will Reichard missed a couple field goals the other day. Would not count him out. If he goes into the preseason games, looks great, then he's got a shot at it. Maybe even makes a tackle on some of these kickoffs. But if Levi Drake Rodriguez gets a couple of sacks, couple pressures, considering the story of the guy, where he's come from, how he looks, like all those things, he just has Mr. Mankato written all over him. But that draft pick looks pretty good when you can get him into the first team, even if it's because Bullard was out today on a veteran day, healing up from something from the other day. Still, if the guy that they picked to slide in there for a significant amount of reps is your 7th round draft pick, you probably feel pretty good about that, because there's other people that they could have just had take all the reps. Wade says, with Murphy, McGlothern, and LDR showing early UDFA success, or at least for 2 out of those 3, and then Drake Rodriguez, the 7th rounder, I hope we can repeat this performance next year when we have fewer draft picks. Well, that might be, and I've thought of this, it might be part of their theory that the difference between 5th, 6th round draft picks and UDFAs may not be that much. So they might put more of the emphasis on, let's spend all of our money to get the most sought after UDFAs and not worry about having 5 7th round draft picks because we traded down a bunch of times. But you're right about that. When you don't have a lot of draft capital in the future, that means you need to find and develop guys. And when we go back to that previous regime, when they created this number 1 defense, they had to find a guy like Andrew Sendejo. They had to find a guy like Tom Johnson. Captain Munnerlyn, the previous seasons, was a free agent that they picked up for not an insane amount of money, and he ended up working out really well. Terrence Newman was the older player. Like, you always have to get guys from places you don't expect to succeed and have them work out in order. There's a little bit of luck involved in that, but when it comes to how much money they've spent to get somebody like Murphy or get somebody like McGlothern, that's more or less their ideas coming to life than it is just pure luck. But, it's always pretty lucky when the UDFAs end up working out. But McGlothern playing as much as he has, he officially has my eye, because they've got other options of guys they could have been playing with that second team as opposed to Jay Ward and Dwight McGlothern, and he's been out there a lot. Conrad says, did Jalen Naylor continue his hot streak? Not today. Interestingly enough, not today. I think maybe Kevin O'Connell wanted Jalen Naylor to know that the battle is not over. He has not won over Brandon Powell, because Powell got, at least from my eye, either most of or almost all of the reps with the first team as the wide receiver 3 alongside of Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, and Jalen Naylor was largely working with the second team. Now, this could be for a bunch of reasons. It might have been a role that he wants him to work on, or that he wanted to give JJ McCarthy an opportunity to work with Jalen Naylor. I mean, there's lots of reasons why things can happen. It just might be a reminder, hey, Jalen Naylor's had a really good training camp so far, but it's only been a couple days and most of the practices have not been padded. Time to go, right? Time to make sure you have to out-battle that veteran. But remember last year how hard it was to figure out what was going on with Brandon Powell and Jalen Reagor. And at the end, we kind of went, oh yeah, he's still Reagor. And that's why they picked the other guy. But on a daily basis, we went back and forth. And Reagor did have a good training camp last year, but we went back and forth because it wasn't super clear from the reps. And I think that is one thing with O'Connell and Flores, is they do a lot of experimenting with the reps more than we used to see in the past. So we can come back to the studio and go, oh man, totally different today. But then tomorrow it might just go right back, or they may have wanted all along in the intense practices to split it up and let them, hey, you get one day with the ones, you get another day. We'll look for patterns as it comes to that. Brandon Powell is a good NFL wide receiver, as we saw last year, or at least he proved that he can do it. But Jalen Naylor has been one of the most exciting players so far in camp. Ron says, everyone expecting JJ to be ready September 8th needs to put on the brakes. Too many young signal callers have been ruined for starting before they're ready. I've always been a little bit curious about this when it comes to, can you actually ruin someone? Or if they're good, they'll find a way to fight through it. But we always hear in hindsight that they got ruined after we know they failed. Now, maybe with someone like Sam Darnold, yeah, you could develop bad habits and you could be in over your head and you can lose confidence. I think with JJ McCarthy, a practice like today is just evidence of why we shouldn't jump the gun. We shouldn't jump to conclusions when it comes to he has a good practice and then we decide that Sam Darnold is useless, get rid of him, it's all JJ McCarthy. Well, there's a reason they did this, because they had a development plan and they, I'm sure, knew that there would be days like today that they feel good that they have Sam Darnold to play at the start of the season, which is where we appear to be headed right now. Again, many practices to go, but I never wanted to move too far toward McCarthy's going to start, it's happening, because we just hadn't seen a big enough sample. And the more of a sample that we see as we go along here, the more it seems like Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback. But again, long way to go. He just looks like a pro who has done this before, and McCarthy looks like he's learning. That's how I tend to interpret it every time there is a practice like this. And then McCarthy has shown enough flashes throughout the entire training camp to also feel good about the draft pick if you're the Vikings, and the way these approached the entire thing, how he bounced back and threw a touchdown after nearly throwing an interception to Theo Jackson, all those kind of things. So I think you can live in both worlds and say he's had some tough practices, including today was a really tough one, but also that the talent is there and the confidence seems to be there. And he's working on understanding the deep nuances now of the playbook. And now we've got a new marker to talk about development from here. So we saw, all right, when he's in shorts and their shells or whatever, then McCarthy looks pretty confident, but now they're throwing some more stuff at him and he's going to have to figure out that workload. How does that look? How do the preseason games look? How do the joint practices look? That's what we'll figure out as we go along. I think it's Gaetano says, how was Darnold over the middle on intermediate throws? Today, everything worked for him. His big throw when it came to the final drive to start the drive was over the middle to Justin Jefferson. It was the same exact looking play from my vantage point on the sideline. I am not claiming I know the play call, but it was the same route that got broken up the other day that this time Darnold got it out on time and hit Justin Jefferson. And that's what you're trying to do in training camp. The first time they ran that, it didn't seem to work, but now, they probably talked about it, looked at it, said, we're going to go back to it. It's a key concept for them. I'm filling in the blanks here. And then they hit it today. And then he finds Jordan Addison for a touchdown, just a phenomenal looking throw. So yeah, I mean, some of it has been over the middle. Yep. But that's probably the hardest thing to do, is to start looking into those windows against your defense and firing away. There's nothing that can really simulate it. And there might even be more of a feeling to try to get rid of the football or when you got the pressure in a situation like that, and speed up a little bit or throw it a little too early. So it was on time today and a very good job from Sam Darnold. Conrad says, I subscribed to your yearly subscription recently. Thank you so much. And to others, if you would like to do the same, go over to purpleinsider.com, click any of the articles. They'll take you to the newsletter. You can sign up there. That's a great way to support the show. So purpleinsider.com, just click on any article. It'll take you there. Sign up. I really appreciate that. Conrad says, I appreciate your thought-provoking style of sports reporting. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Did I go to journalism school? Yes, indeed. Yes, I did. It's not one you've probably heard of, but I most certainly did. Brockport Golden Eagles. Shout out to all the Division III teams out there. Mine made once the Final Four in the Division III. I was not there. I had graduated already, but yeah, Brockport is where I went. It's in New York. It's a very small college. And then got internships in radio from there, got hired here to work for ESPN Radio in the Twin Cities, and then started Purple Insider after my radio station got destroyed because of COVID cuts. And that's how I'm here. So there's the whole story if you didn't know it. purpleinsider.com, sign up for the newsletter. Anyway, George says, ups and downs from both our quarterbacks pushing each other. Would you rather have pre-draft heartthrob Maye, who has been a flop so far? See, this is we don't need to do this. Like, we don't need to call Drake Maye a flop because he hasn't looked great in practices. Because if you went to today's practice and the last one with McCarthy, you might call him a flop. Nobody's a flop yet. No one's even close to a flop. I think it probably takes at least 3 years or 2.5 to figure out, unless it goes Jamarcus Russell level, biblical awful. It takes some time to figure out. I mean, do we know yet on Bryce Young? Anybody want to be overconfident on that? I mean, I'm not. I want to see that play out. Anthony Richardson, there's quarterbacks that are drafted 2-3 years ago that, unless we're really sure because they're Mac Jones and they've been traded, then we can't do that yet. Drake Maye has probably the worst roster that he's working with in the entire NFL. Here's how bad of a roster the New England Patriots have. The Vikings gave Vidarian Lowe to the Patriots. Remember him? He was a late round draft pick, and they may have traded him for like a 7th or something. Vidarian Lowe is their starting left tackle. He was a late round pick that the Vikings evaluated and went, nah, we don't, move on. And they're starting him at left tackle. KJ Osborne is their Justin Jefferson out there. I mean, from what I've seen in practice, he's the one that's getting a lot of the targets from their quarterbacks. That team is destitute. And so, yeah, Drake Maye is probably going to look not too great. As far as would I rather have, I mean, here's how this works. Well, first of all, I don't know which guy is going to be better. I certainly know which guy has a better situation. It is JJ McCarthy by a gazillion and 50 miles. But the person who is drafted number 1 has better chances than the person drafted number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Historically, it's just a fact, right? We've got a big enough sample to draft. The higher you're drafted, the better your chance of success. Shocking stuff, but that is really true. So when you talk about would you rather have the higher drafted quarterback, well, I guess, I mean, just because of what history says that the higher you're drafted, the better you have a chance. But it's really about how does JJ McCarthy look so far? Because something like that, well, we can't swap them. We'll never be able to. We don't know what Drake Maye would look like if he was practicing with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison right now. What we do know is that JJ McCarthy looks like a quarterback that was drafted in the first round who is adapting well, but has also had some practices that have been very difficult for him. And the idea is to learn from those practices, particularly when you're going up against Brian Flores' defense, learn from those practices and then don't make the mistakes again and improve and grow. But still, it takes a very long time, even over a first entire season. What CJ Stroud did is pretty rare. We can all name the handful of different quarterbacks who have succeeded in their first season because it's only a handful. It's Ben Roethlisberger, right? It's Dak Prescott, but that's it. That's how challenging this league is for somebody who did not have a lot of reps, even in college. There's going to be practices like this. I absolutely expected there to be, but I guess from your point, would you change the draft pick based on what you know? I wouldn't think anything different based on what I know so far, because I don't know a lot, and neither do the Patriots, about these quarterbacks in comparison to when we actually get to see them play. That'll start in preseason, and we'll go from there and build on that sample. But I just want to remind everybody, and I may say this multiple times as we try to evaluate where the winds are blowing. There is a headline. If you go and Google this, you can find it, that says something to the effect of Ryan Leaf outplays Peyton Manning in preseason action. Just something to keep in mind, that Ryan Leaf outplayed Peyton Manning when they faced head-to-head as rookies in 1998, I believe. That's how difficult it is to figure this out, because once they actually got on the field, Peyton Manning still had a very tough first season, but then it became very clear that he was much better than Ryan Leaf. That didn't take long after that. We'll figure it all out as we go along. I think the questions that we're trying to answer on a daily basis, the number one question is, how close is JJ McCarthy to being QB1? That is the A1 question. And then it's a branch of different questions. How comfortable does he look in the 2-minute drills? How in command is he? How accurate is he? And I don't think accuracy's been an issue for JJ McCarthy. So how in control can he be when they call anything off of the menu and he has to know it, know the read, and know the footwork and all those things? And so far there's been some rocky moments there, and there's also been some good moments. But today was one of those that he's going to have to learn a lot from, I think. So it was pretty rough. Nate says, is it really such a bad thing if McCarthy had to sit behind Darnold for a month or 2 months or even the whole year? No, I've never thought that. I have never thought that it would be a bad thing if JJ McCarthy sat behind Sam Darnold. Never. I've always thought that that's totally fine with me. And whenever Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown decide it's time, then it's time. And if they decide he's ready, then he's ready, because they would know so much better than us watching practice when it's time to start getting him first team reps, when it's time to, potentially think about starting him. And there's so many different scenarios. And I just recorded an episode with Kevin Seifert out at TCO Performance Center, which we're going to run on the channel tomorrow, but where we talked about a bunch of different scenarios and what they might do. under different circumstances. What if Darnold plays really well? Then it's okay to sit McCarthy, because I just don't think it hurts anyone who is a good quarterback to have that experience, because then you get to the end of the season and the quarterback can go into the offseason, work with their QB guru, work with the coaching staff to formulate a plan, and they can just keep improving and improving, as opposed to the combine, doing all the meetings and the visits. It's very hard to improve from the time you play in November, or in his case in January, to the time you step on the field with the Vikings, because you have so much going on trying to prepare for all these meetings with teams. You're trying to get drafted higher. There's a lot of stress that goes along with that. So it's perfectly okay if he sits and develops, as long as it takes. That's really it. Angel, Matthew, if and when Hitman retires, is his replacement on the roster? Yeah, I think his replacement's Theo Jackson. If not, then it's Cam Bynum's replacement. If Cam Bynum decides to become a free agent, which he is a free agent after this season, Theo Jackson's a guy they want to keep. I mean, that is a steal for them. And I know it's training camp hype and everything, but we have seen him do it in games. He was an exceptional special teamer. He got the pick against Philadelphia. He played a role for them last year and did quite well. This guy is on the rise, and Matt Daniels called him an ascending player the other day. So it seems if it ends up being Metellus and Theo Jackson, because Harrison Smith retires and Cam Bynum moves on, you're still in good shape with that safety room. And Lewisine still not practicing. It took 48 minutes for me to even mention that, because it just doesn't matter. It could be that Lewisine is just being injured, sitting out practice because he's had enough and wants to be traded or cut, or he could have an injury. We didn't even ask. That's where it stands right now. Is I didn't even think of it till after the press conference. I was like, wait, we didn't even ask for an update on Lewisine, because it doesn't matter. Theo Jackson has run so far ahead of him. And I think I talked about this last year and a couple of times. I don't care where you get them. They just need to be good players. And they grabbed Theo Jackson off of somebody's practice squad. And here he is. What a fickle sport. Let's see. Andrew says, I believe Sam Darnold will be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this season. Okay. He's got a cannon for an arm. If that happens, do you think we can afford to re-sign him, or are we going to JJ no matter what? If he is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, which is not impossible, but would be absolutely insane if that happened. If he is somehow in that range, then yes, they could find a way to give him an extension in the same way that Tampa Bay did for Baker Mayfield, or that the Seattle Seahawks did for Geno Smith, kind of a short prove it type of deal. But if he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, then you're a Super Bowl contender. Seriously, the rest of this roster is pretty decent. I mean, they've got Flores on the other side. They added to the defense. Yeah, the cornerback group is concerning, but if he's top 5, then you're running one of the best offenses in the NFL with Justin Jefferson, and you are absolutely rolling. So yes, if he put this team in Super Bowl contention, running a top 5 offense, they probably wouldn't have a choice but to try to bring him back and take a shot at the Super Bowl again next year. That is low percentage chance of happening. If it does, we'll address it when we get there. I mean, maybe you're talking about a franchise tag. More likely would be a short-term extension, and they would leave McCarthy on the bench. If they had a top 5 offense and they were in serious contention for the Super Bowl, I don't think that they would go to McCarthy after that, but that's a long shot to me. Austin, how does Ty Chandler look? What has he been improving since he was a rookie? Well, the thing he has to improve the most is just his knowledge of the game, and make sure he locks in the details of who he's supposed to block, his technique while blocking them, where he's supposed to go behind what blockers that he's looking at. But Ty Chandler is fast. I mean, it doesn't take any effort to see that speed from the sideline. He is super quick, and he's been getting a ton of work. So it's been a good camp for him, I think, because he's getting a ton of work. Aaron Jones goes in there a couple times a practice, does something pretty good, and then doesn't take more reps. It's like, okay, yep, I'm good. Kind of how in 2020, Dalvin Cook just didn't take many reps during training camp. He was negotiating a contract, and then right out of the gate, Cook was awesome. You don't need to give Aaron Jones a whole lot of reps. Every day, remind himself the body works, but way better to make sure that he's healthy, and also way better for Ty Chandler to just get a ton of work out there. And I think he's looked fine. He's looked very, very fast. They could put him in some different situations, outside runs, inside runs, because he's got toughness to be able to run between the tackles. He's not just a pure speed guy. The talent is all there for Ty Chandler. It's just, can you do the right things consistently when it comes to the playbook and the pass protection? That's what he's got to master. Brett says Cam Akers looked pretty good in the Hall of Fame game last night. Will we ever learn the physical that prevented him from getting on the Vikings roster? Yeah, I don't know what happened there. He was on the transaction wire of ESPN somehow, and then he did not sign with the Vikings. That's all I got. He did look good last night, and Cam Akers is as tough as they come. I mean, to go through one Achilles is traumatic. To go through two and to get back on the field and to score a touchdown and to look good. He was a guy that brought a lot to them last year. Odd that he fell out of favor in Los Angeles, but then comes here. I felt like he fit in extremely well. He learned the offense quickly. He made some plays. He had that one crazy block on the Josh Dobbs run where he laid out somebody that was, I think, a defensive tackle. Extremely, extremely tough dude. So I hope it works out for him. He is a guy that gives it everything he's got. I mean, that's what we saw from him last year. And then to come back, you could easily retire. He was a second-round pick. He's gotten some money in his life. He just say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. He's back with the Texans. Good for him. But I don't know what happened medically, or even if the Vikings offered him a contract and then it was contingent on something, or if nothing happened there at all, because the reporting on that was very murky. Evan says, if you watched the beginning of the Hall of Fame game last night, what are your thoughts on the new kickoff? Oh, Evan, I did not just watch the beginning. I ended up watching all of it. I know the other night someone asked about the Hall of Fame game, and I kind of rolled my eyes. But once the kickoffs got going, the game was fun. There was a lot of offense. They were throwing the ball all over the place. The kickoffs were all, I think there was 7 or 8 of them. I couldn't turn it off once they got the kickoffs going. And I really enjoy those interviews with the different Hall of Famers on the sideline. So yeah, I was captivated. I know I said, hey, it's a Hall of Fame game. So I don't know about that. That's too much. I watched the football. To your point though, I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought the returns weren't particularly great. And no, it did not blow your socks off instantly. But if you looked at the blockers and how they were trying some different things with the blocking, also there was a cut or two that the returner went to make and just slid. Thank you for absolutely nothing, Canton. Every year it seems like there's some controversy with the field, and the players last night were sliding all over the place. It was brutal. Is it that hard to get a football field out there to Canton? I guess it must be. But to get that much action was great. Here it is. This is what it looks like. Yeah, it's a little weird, and there are a couple of penalties, but we've got a play where a guy kicks off and a guy is returning, and the minute he catches the ball and starts running, it looks like a kick return. It doesn't have quite the chaos of the kick return before, the old school kick return where there's people flying down 110 miles an hour, but you've got to play, and you've got something that gives special teams value back, and it matters, and you're going to watch it as opposed to going to the refrigerator every time. I mean, I was very pleased to see the kick return back, and you're going to have to give it time because no team is going to want to show any other team in the preseason what they're going to actually do. So they're going to run some sort of base play that has no wrinkles to it. And then all the wrinkles are going to come out after that. And that's where it could be very fascinating to watch. I loved it though. Give it to me. Austin says Dwight McGlothern, a good Mr. Mankato if he keeps showing progress. I agree with that. He needs a pick, maybe a pick 6. You get that if you're a UDFA and you get a good amount of reps in a preseason game, you grab a pick 6. Oh yeah, great Mr. Mankato chances. Phil says, is Levi Drake Rodriguez going against Bradbury? Well, first team versus first team. Yep. I didn't see exactly. I could not tell you rep for rep how that went, but he's going against the interior of the offensive line. And by the way, I mean, Bradbury is a veteran center who has proven, I think, over the last 2 years to be in the mid pack in the NFL. And he's not a guy that I think too much about. The first impression, and I mean that in a good way. Like, I think that he does his job on a weekly basis. Every once in a while, especially when he faces Kenny Clark, it's going to be a long day for him because Kenny Clark's an elite player at that position. But what he's become over the last 2 years is much less of a discussion of, wow, this was your first round pick and he's struggling so much. I think he's gotten it together and he's become somebody that can play center for this team for a long time and lead the young quarterback and all those things. I think that he's got it locked in as far as the leadership, the understanding of O'Connell's offense. It's been a better fit for him. If they can get one of the best centers in the league, if, Darmani Dawson is around, then of course they would go out and do that, but probably not. And you don't want to spend draft capital on one. So I think he's okay. I'm not sure if you were sort of insinuating that someone would have more success against Garrett Bradbury, but he comes up from time to time still. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to worry too much about that position. Now the backup last year, Austin Schlottman, I always felt pretty good about him going in. I don't know what that's going to be like now. If Garrett Bradbury were to get hurt, like what the quality is going to be. Conrad says, for now, I'd prefer that JJ stay on the bench for most, or if not the whole year. I think it will take him some time to adjust to the larger playbook as well as faster pace of the pro game. Absolutely. Yeah. And that will be the most difficult thing, is taking that same attitude when Sam Darnold throws a 3-interception game and still saying, hey, it's okay. Like we can keep being patient working through this, because it could look bad if it doesn't work out for Sam Darnold. But then there's days like today where you go, if Sam Darnold plays like that, it's going to look good, but it doesn't look like that every day. This is where it's fascinating to study this on a day-to-day basis, because it's not proven yet what this is going to be. Human Reconditioning says, how's Gabriel Murphy look? I think good. He's been working in a lot with the second team, and he's bigger than I expected when they talked about him as somebody that had short arms. But the rest of him's big, and I don't think this defense requires that crazy freakish arm length to be good. Him and Owen Porter are two guys that I am very interested in. He's been playing also aside from Jihad Ward. Jihad Ward is a giant, enormous, massive human being who I think has had some success as a rusher so far. Maybe could be someone that's a rotational pass rusher in situations. I think they want to get a lot of looks at Jihad Ward to see if they need a veteran there or if it's Murphy. But the early returns on UDFAs, once again, are better. I mean, normally, how often are we talking about UDFAs on a given year? Not that much. But here we are saying, hey, well, Murphy looks pretty good and McGlothern looks pretty good. Might net them some players that we didn't expect. And that has to be included in the draft record, by the way. There are some people who that doesn't count. No, Ivan Pace counts because it's a draft class where you also get undrafted players. I think that counts. If not, I guess you could just say, well, then Kwesi nailed free agency because he got the Ivan Pace last year or something. But I think when you're bringing in a bunch of rookies, it doesn't really matter how you got them. It's just that you got them. And with Adam Thielen, we never went, I don't know, Rick, did you really get Adam Thielen? Like, yes, and they deserve credit for it. Anywho, JP, I think it's a positive that JJ had a tough day today and can have bad ones in the future. 2, it'll calm down the fans asking him for him to start. This way he can develop without pressure like Kevin wants. Yeah. I don't think that Kevin O'Connell is too worried about the fans and what they're saying about JJ McCarthy. At the same time, you're right, because he's been very careful with his words, and he's been very cautious to say anything that insinuates that JJ McCarthy is farther ahead than he actually thinks that he is. He has not been coming up to the podium and saying, guys, he's almost ready. He's ready to go. He's been saying, calm down, take it slow. We're going to do this day by day and all that, which is so much harder to do for everyone, including the fans who see a great play in a video in training camp and want him to start. And I don't blame anybody for that. I'm not criticizing fans who want JJ McCarthy to play. He's the first round draft pick. He's the highest drafted player ever in Vikings history at the quarterback position. It's exciting times. And when you see him make a throw like he even had today, that he threw a touchdown, or a scramble where he found somebody in the red zone drill, you go like, yeah, okay, all right, get him in there. Let's see it. But we don't have to do that. There's time to work our way through that. But I agree with you that it does. Some of the bad days can be good for him to work his way through. I don't think there's too much that's going to stop some fans from just calling for him to play because they want to see him. They want to be excited. They want to be entertained. Ken says Vikings preseason starts next weekend, and it matters, Ken. It matters. I mean, think about that preseason game where T.Y. McGill, who had an NFL career, so no hate, T.Y. McGill has 3 sacks, and he's the biggest story of the night, other than Kellen Mond throwing a really bad pick. That's what we've been doing. Hey, Jaron Hall versus Arizona last year. He's playing 4 quarters of the 4th preseason game, and we're breaking it down as if it's going to mean something. It's just brutal. It's been brutal. And it will probably be brutal next year. So we get our one preseason that I suspect is going to be fun. Let's lean into it, which means there's going to be a post-game show from from US Bank Stadium. Dane Mizutani and I will be in the stadium and up in the press box. Actually, we do it from the coordinator's box. Technically, they've left. We come up from the locker room. We set up in there, and the stadium's behind us. It's awesome. I mean, I'm very excited about doing that post game. But just in case you're new to the channel, that's what will happen about an hour or so after the game. We go down for the press conferences, hear everything the players have to say in the locker room. Then we come back up and we go live from there. That's how that operation works. Real quick, allow me to do some ad reading here so the show can continue to exist. US Cellular noticed that the way that we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu is on a QR code. That is ironic. We hit like on social media posts that we don't actually like. Also ironic, which is why US Cellular created Us Mode to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from US Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started. And also, how about this? This is very cool. Just solidified this. About 20 days from now, Brian Murphy and I are going out to Las Vegas to do a couple of shows from Circa in Las Vegas. Why? Because of the Circa Million and Circa Survivor contests. We will be promoting them there in the middle of August, which is the best time to go to Vegas. But here's why you should go. Is because for the Circa Million contest, you pick 5 teams against the spread every week. Winner takes home $1 million. In the Survivor contest, you pick 1 team straight up to win each week. If you go 20-0 or you're the last person standing, you can bring in massive prize money. Last year, 4 winners split $9.2 million. Costs $1,000 to enter, but if you win, you are a millionaire. So you have to register out there in Nevada at Circa in Las Vegas, Henderson, or Reno. So if you're taking a flight somewhere, stop there, check into Circa, jump in on the contests, and maybe you'll win. So you have to do it, of course, before the season starts. Go to circalasvegas.com. But that'll be a very fun little quick trip, 2 days for me and Brian Murphy, but we'll be doing a few shows from there. and then we'll come back and there's the final preseason games. So busy times. Matt B says, with Hunter being gone, which Viking is the most like an Olympian now? It's probably Sammy Reyes, who is their backup tight end, who's the international player. He is as jacked as a human being could possibly be. That would be my first pick. I know he's way down on the roster, but that's how he's here in the NFL, is just because he is insanely jacked. The other one that is really big once you get close to him is Jerry Tillery. First round draft pick for a reason. He is extremely strong looking, but most of them could pick us up and snap us in half. But I think Jerry Tillery might be the answer for Greco-Roman wrestling or weightlifting, or is that an Olympic sport? Maybe something like that. Wade says, with the prediction that kickers may be more involved in the tackles, we need to get Will Reichard out of math class and into Pat McAfee's school of hard knocks. Will Reichard is in the school of push the dude out of bounds, is the best that you want him to do. But it is scary. It is scary that they're going to be as involved as they are if somebody breaks through. And that's something that I will be watching for sure, is how often those kickers get involved. Jay Mullis says, how has Jaquelin Roy been looking? I think Jaquelin Roy looks powerful and he's an enormous dude. But when you see that Levi Drake Rodriguez was working in more, it makes you wonder, all right, where does Jaquelin Roy really stand on this depth chart? And it's funny how fast these things happen, right? Last year, he's having a good training camp. We're talking about him more, gets in, makes a couple of plays. Then we're like, oh, okay. And then they draft somebody else and the other guy looks a little bit better. And there you go. They play different roles. Jaquelin Roy is more of the run stuffer, but I'm not sure that he's on the team. I'm not sure where he stands on the depth chart, because if Jonah Williams is here and Jerry Tillery, and they keep Levi Drake Rodriguez and Jonathan Bullard and Harrison Phillips, now we're racking up a lot of defensive tackles. Is there going to be a spot for Jaquelin Roy, or could they feel like they could get him through to the practice squad because he's a guy that was drafted in the 5th last year, but didn't really do a whole heck of a lot. So we'll see on that. We'll see in the preseason games if he stands out. Has not really stood out a ton to me so far. Swervin Mervin says, way too soon hypothetical. If JJ McCarthy's Alex Smith, how do we feel about paying him top quarterback money coming out of his rookie deal? That is like 4 years from now. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what the NFL is going to look like. Didn't Kyle Shanahan say one time, I don't know if we're going to be alive tomorrow or something? I mean, I'm all for down the road predictions. If he were to play like Alex Smith, the version that was really good in San Francisco and Kansas City, that would mean winning a lot of football games and giving his team a chance to be in the playoffs and a lot of big moments. And it would be an easy decision if he played like that. I think that the recollection of Alex Smith is maybe a little bit different than the reality. The guy won a lot of games in his career. If a guy that you draft does that, you are very, very pleased. And that's why I'm careful with that comparison, because I don't want people to think I mean, well, he's just a check down game manager that gets replaced by somebody better. That's not what I mean. I mean the San Francisco version that was mobile and that could throw the ball really well. Maybe wasn't going to put up the elite statistics, but was good in situational football, great character, and won a lot of games. And I kind of mean it from a skills perspective, having a strong arm, but not always the precise accuracy all the time. And though I think he's better at throwing on the run, and enough mobility to make plays, but not enough mobility to run for 1,000 yards. Brandon, are you going to the joint practices in Cleveland? These practice reports have been awesome. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you've enjoyed them. And the answer is absolutely yes. I will be there. I booked my travel to fly out, and I'm staying at the whatever hotel near the airport. And for a couple days, I will be there 2 days, 2 practices. Lots of stuff will come out of that. Bunch of podcasts. I am hoping that the hotel Wi-Fi holds up enough maybe to do a live chat with you guys. So keep your eyes out for lots of content. That will be the 14th and 15th are the 2 days. Wade says there needs to be a QB salary cap to save owners from themselves. This is what I mean. 4 years from now, maybe there will be. I mean, they're talking about putting in 18 games. There's so many possibilities that it's very difficult to be able to tell what it's going to look like with JJ McCarthy and the quarterback landscape 4 years from now. Robert, is it plausible for Ty Chandler to become legit good this far into his career? Does that really happen for running backs this far in? It's only 3 years into his career. Oftentimes, opportunity is a big part of it. Is it possible? I mean, running backs don't require as much development as other positions. They have the fastest learning curve. So I think it would be surprising if he became, in year 3, an elite running back. And if they thought he was going to, then they wouldn't have signed Aaron Jones. At the same time, like, he's in the middle of his career and has been around for a couple years and developed and should know more now than when he got here. And if he gets the opportunity like he did last year, he could be good. You just don't know with running backs. And sometimes, look at Aaron Jones. He was drafted in the same round as Ty Chandler, and he's one of the best players the last decade. I mean, running back is a very fickle position to try to figure out. But he has the talent. We know that. He can dodge tackles. He is insanely fast. He's great with the football in his hands. He may be a part of the kickoff, which I'd like to see with his speed. The potential is there for him to be a big player for them. How high that ceiling is, if he doesn't have the details, the patience, understand the blocks, I'm a little less sure about that. But he averaged 4.5 yards a carry last year. The explosion is there. Maxwell says, are there referees that we see on the practice field who are legit NFL referees? I've never asked exactly that question, but I believe the answer is yes. I have seen a couple referees through the years that I recognize. I'm not 100% sure who all the referees are. I see them out there and they're doing their thing, and that's kind of all I really know about it. I wish I could give you more information on the refs. There's definitely been times where I've recognized a referee who is at Vikings practice, but I don't know if the ones who are calling games are at every NFL practices around the country. If somebody knows the answer to that question, let me know. Let's see. Rick Tick, is JJ playing his first team defense and Darnold against his second team defense? If so, it's really not fair to evaluate. So yeah, that was different today. It's been a mix depending on the drill. And today it was mostly 1s and 1s, 2s and 2s. It always depends. I mean, because there's been a lot of 7-on-7 reps where it's 2s and 2s, and then red zone where it's 2s and 2s, 1s and 1s. Situational is always 1s and 1s, 2s and 2s. What I guess maybe according to O'Connell, I didn't lay that out quite well enough, because it had been a lot of reps for JJ McCarthy from the 2s against 1s, and Wes Phillips explained that it it helps you speed up a little bit. It's like Kevin Seifert describes it as like having the batting donut on, but I didn't mean to, if I did, make it seem like he was taking all of his reps versus the first team defense. It has been a split for different things, but he has been doing it more than you would expect, 2s versus 1s. And I've asked other people, other reporters, like from other teams, do you guys do this? And usually the answer is no. Like, usually they don't. Usually it's 1s, 1s, 2s, 2s. So I thought that was interesting, and that's why I asked. But I didn't have the exact rep split, I guess. Bradley says, in your opinion, who is the last quarterback out of a job, or keep 4 because other teams having their quarterback out for the season? I would keep all 4. I don't think that anyone is going to pick up Jaren Hall if you put him on the practice squad. I would leave 3 as active. As much as no one wants to watch Nick Mullins play, they want to see the other quarterbacks. You can play games with Nick Mullins if you have to. And look, they got to the last year, Mullins got hurt, and you end up with Josh Dobbs in there. You probably want to have 3 quarterbacks. And then that gives you also the emergency quarterback situation as well, where you can elevate them if there's an injury. So yeah, I mean, I just, I think that they will keep 4. unless they really don't like what they've seen from Jaren Hall, but they like Jaren Hall. It's just his ceiling is going to be a Nick Mullins. Phil says they're going about it the right way. Tavares Jackson wasn't ready to play, but Childress had no other options. Vikings have options around JJ. Right. And that's what here's what I don't know. I don't know if playing JJ McCarthy too soon could ruin him. Some guys can't be ruined no matter what. Even if it's the worst situation in the league, they'll work their way through it. Joe Burrow was like this horrible situation that he came into, fought his way through it. It's in the Super Bowl the next year. I don't know. What I do know is that on the other side of that, that playing it safe doesn't have much downside. If they play it safe and he doesn't go in right away, what's the worst thing that happens? He's irritated because he felt like he should be playing. I mean, there's almost no downside to that. Guard guy, nice to see you. How many guards do you think should be on the field for the kickoff return? Now, you joke, you jest, guard guy. But here's what I'm going to tell you, guard guy. I didn't see a lot of offensive linemen out there for the kickoff for last night or today when the Vikings were practicing it. And it is a discussion, though. Should you have some offensive linemen out there, or are they just too slow to handle the quickness of the defenders? How would you work that out? What if it was all offensive linemen? But I think they're not quick enough because there still is space. And if you start having linebackers running around your offensive linemen, plus there's not a lot of good offensive linemen in the league. So with the backups they have, Walter Rouse has looked good. And you have Reisner, Feeney is experienced, Questenberry. These are all good players. It's probably one of the best second units that you're going to see for an offensive line. It's probably better than the Patriots offensive line right now. You don't want those guys out there getting banged up, and then you can only keep so many on your roster. Then you don't have a backup for a game. It's better to use the backup linebackers, the backup maybe defensive linemen, edge rushers. Those are probably the best fit for that blocking. Alexander says first reps for Levi maybe to get a look at him in pass rush situations. Roy plays a run stopping role. Yeah, no, and that's true. But I don't know that we've seen Jaquelin Roy in 2 years get a first team rep. I mean, there might be one mixed in there, but I don't remember too many of them. With Levi, of course. Yeah. I mean, they were using him in the situational drill where they were going down the field, obvious pass situations. Absolutely. They want to get a look at him for sure. Because he's one of the few guys that can actually do that on the roster. And that may be one of the reasons why he's getting this opportunity. Brett says, listening to other reporters, some people think Mullins can be traded, keeping Hall for the future backup as the quarterback in the rookie contract. Any way to get a 6th round pick for Diet Brett Favre? I don't like that idea. I don't think that just because you have one extra guy who's competent at playing quarterback, you should just get rid of him. I also think Kevin O'Connell really respects Nick Mullins, and look who you have in the room. You have one quarterback who's never played here before, and you have another quarterback who's never played at all before. And then what Jaren Hall is supposed to help them prepare and help prepare the defense on a weekly basis. I would much rather have Nick Mullins. I don't think a 6th is worth it. I'd rather have a backup quarterback who can contribute. That's my opinion. I would just rather have Nick Mullins on the team. What about Bob says, Matt, you have a cool job. That's for sure. If you didn't do this for your career, what would you like to do besides playing guitar in a rock band? That's the only other thing I'm good at. I got nothing. I have no idea. The only other thing that I am good at in this world, other than talking to you guys, is playing guitar. Nothing else. So I would be screwed entirely. That's why I didn't just quit the business after the whole thing with 1500 ESPN. So the whole thing just being that a lot of people got laid off. If you're just watching, nothing crazy happened. It was just, routine layoffs. But there's nothing else I can think of. I mean, maybe I could be an old school gamer content creator, but I don't know that has long-term upside. Like how long would people want to watch me play Tecmo Bowl seasons or something online? But that also still falls under the content creation. I don't know. Maybe, it would all be in the sports realm or playing guitar, because there was a time where I was getting to know a lot of baseball scouts when I was doing minor league baseball broadcasting. And there were a few scouts who asked me if I was interested in becoming a scout. And I just decided that I like this side better of things, and that scouting life is extremely hard. But that might have been it. I really like player evaluation. Nate, who has the best and worst record in the division this year? Right now, I would go with the Lions and then the Bears. That seems pretty obvious. The Bears are going to start a rookie the whole time, but if he plays well, he could be better than what the Vikings get from their quarterback situation. It's really segmented. It's the Packers and Lions could each win the division. The Vikings and Bears are fighting for that third spot and fighting for playoff relevancy, unless Caleb Williams is phenomenal right away. Is possible that is the case. I don't know how it's going to work out. A lot of people seem to want to jump to conclusions about one thing or another. Saw somebody from national television declaring Drake Maye was a bust already. Like, that's incredible. That is incredible. I'm watching every practice and going, well, oh, okay. Well, yeah. All right. I can see it. Well, let's let this play out. And then you just got like, no, he's a bust. I already know. Oh, okay, great. Wow. You must be a soothsayer, as Rick Spielman once said. I think that comes from Julius Caesar, right? The soothsayer. Anyway, that's the wild card of the whole thing, because with the Vikings, I think they have good enough coaching that they will be in the mix, 7-8 wins at worst, and fighting for that playoff spot into December. They have, just on the defensive side, what Kevin O'Connell brings, Justin Jefferson, they're going to be there even if it's not working out great for the quarterback, as we saw from last year, even if the quarterback is messy. But what Chicago does is a total wild card for me. Caleb Williams could look very much like Justin Fields last year and get sacked a lot and turn the ball over a lot as a rookie trying to make too many plays, and it could be a struggle. Or he could just be really good. I don't know. Like, the range of outcomes is so wide, and that's what the division may depend on. And of course, there's always health as an issue as well. KOC, born in 03, which is not true. You got to change that back to whatever it was before for your nickname. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate JJ McCarthy's Riz? Well, I'm sure that you are aware that I don't know what that is. But if it means like his coolness factor, I mean, I think that he has a lot of confidence, but I really truly don't know what that means. If it means his confidence, then it's very high. And I don't think a bad day like today is going to bring him down. I think he's going to look at it and play better tomorrow. That's what we see from him that is impressive, is the way that he carries himself, whether you call it Riz or something else. Oh gosh, play guitar on the stream for a bit. Maybe someday I will. I'll just get it out, start lighting it up for you guys. But maybe that seems like a June thing, not a training camp shred Q&A. I don't know. JP, with all the UDFAs playing well and Jihad Ward being able to play outside linebacker, considering that Brian Flores values versatility, would it make sense to trade Pat Jones? No. Don't do that. Actually, Pat Jones has looked pretty good. That's one thing, but don't move on from players that could be helpful or needed. Jihad Ward has been out there quite a bit, and you're not getting anything for Pat Jones in a trade. I wouldn't suspect. The more depth you can have, the better. That's just, I mean, if you cut someone like Owen Porter, even if you like him, you're getting him. Maybe Murphy would get picked up, but Bo Richter, Owen Porter, those guys aren't getting picked up. Teams have their own UDFAs that they like. Depth is good. Don't. This is something we went through with Alexander Madison a couple years ago when Dalvin Cook 2022, and we were having this discussion about trading Madison's like, whoa, don't trade depth players. You need them. It's a long season. You can't just get rid of guys because, well, we've got one extra. That's what you do on Madden, but you have to turn injuries off. Conrad, Thayer Thomas showing anything recently? Not really, to tell you the truth. Not a lot of reps. Now is when we're starting to see those rep distributions in the padded practices. and there just hasn't been that many for Thayer Thomas. It's been a lot of Lucky Jackson. Tristan Jackson's been doing it out there. Naylor's been doing it. And Trent Sherfield, I thought had a good day today. Trent Sherfield battling for a spot as well. But I mean, Thayer Thomas is pretty deep on the depth chart right now, I think. Brett, give us your dark horse team for this year to make a deep playoff run that no one sees coming. Okay, let me look. I got to look at all the teams, then I can decide. Dark horse. I got to think about this. You know, it's like I want to pick Dallas because everyone seems to think Dallas is going to be horrible. Who is a dark horse team that could be good? Too bad for Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. I might have picked them. Vegas, probably not. The quarterback play is not good enough. Pittsburgh, maybe, but I still don't buy there. Okay, the darkest horse, the one that would be truly shocking, but you could almost see it, would be Tennessee. Tennessee is it. Tennessee is the answer. If Will Levis just, Levis, and he was great. And year 2 took a big step. They got Calvin Ridley there. I know DeAndre Hopkins is banged up, but just Treylon Burks is great all of a sudden. The improved offensive line with the new coach. Whoa, the Titans. That would be the most shocking dark horse. The other one is, although I am seeing this get brought up from time to time, is Arizona. They made a lot of progress last year as a organization, getting rid of some people that weren't that good for them. And Kyler Murray is back. And when Kyler Murray plays at his best, he's actually good. When he plays at his best, he is a good, really good quarterback. I think he's a top 10 quarterback when he's playing at his best. He hasn't been that for a long period of time, but we've seen it at times. If he plays really, really well, and they start improving as an organization, it does happen fast after teams tank. I mean, remember Miami tanked and then they were 9-8 the following season. That happened to the Lions. They tanked 9-8 the following season. Could be Arizona as well as a team that would totally shock us. Jared says, I think you would be a conductor of a live orchestra on Broadway. Well, I can't. This is a funny thing about playing guitar. I can't read music, which you need to be able to do to be a conductor for an orchestra. It is always just, I imagine, and I'm not making a joke here, but I imagine it's how dyslexic people feel reading stuff is I look at it and I just see blurry numbers and shapes and I get confused and scared. I learned how to play entirely without knowing how to play or how to read music, but that would totally disqualify me from almost any other instrument, to tell you the truth. It just happens. And if you play guitar, then you know that you can learn guitar without actually learning how to read music. And that's how I ended up here, I think. Let's see. Couple more before we call it a night. Oh, that's an interesting one. Commanders. I think I went just in my mind with, hey, there's a rookie quarterback and you probably will not end up with, a huge season from a rookie quarterback, but it does happen from time to time. Commanders would be a real shocker if they ended up better. The Panthers are another one. If Bryce Young takes the big step, we can't just say, hey, like we're out on that guy because he had that bad rookie year. They signed a lot of people in the offseason on the offensive line. They got a new coach. That coach has been good with some quarterbacks that struggled. I'm just seeing this, guys. Wade says, congrats to Matt/Matthew. Either way is fine on hitting 9,000 subscribers. All right, let's go. I did not realize that's where we're going. And that is because of all of you guys. And I know you're all telling your friends to like and subscribe as well. And signing up for the newsletter and tattooing Purple Insider's logo on the inside of your thigh and all those sorts of things. But, yeah, Jared, I mean, it is learning music, is, I think, a lot like, other skills that you have to learn as a kid. And if you learn it as a little kid, it's like a language, then it's easier to get it clicked in. But I didn't start playing till I was maybe 13. And I learned off of, there's a style of written music that tells you kind of where to put your fingers. I learned off of that. So I didn't learn the other stuff. Anyway, one more football question. Jason says, think the Vikings regret not signing Cam Akers. Looked good yesterday. I don't know why they didn't sign Cam Akers. I would have to know the reason for that. Was it because of his health and they just didn't think it was going to hold up? Did they not look what they saw in an MRI or something? I really don't know. Or maybe they never even talked about it anyway. I honestly don't know. It was so murky with the discussion about Akers and whether he was coming here or not. But I mean, he looked excellent yesterday, and their current situation is not that good. I was thinking if Akers came back, that they would feel pretty confident in their room. So that it is possible that they regret not signing him. At the same time, if you get down to the point where you regret something about your third running back, you probably just had some bad luck and you have to shrug your shoulders. Anyway, oh gosh says, if I'm tattooing Purple Insider on the inside of my thigh, my life has to take a drastic turn or I'm on the show. Well, there are a lot of people who come on the show who don't tattoo themselves. So you don't necessarily have to do it. I learned from Guitar Hero. No, Guitar Hero, I'm horrible. Awful at guitar. Unplayably bad. People did not want me in college to play because I would lose horribly because it's not the same. See, I would hear the actual strumming motion from the instrument and I would hit the button when the actual strum was supposed to happen, but that's not how it works on the game. And I would just screw it up terribly. So Guitar Hero, sorry, it didn't work for me. Anyway, now we've definitely reached the point. Oh, right at 9:00. Always the point where it gets goofy, right around 9:00. Great stuff tonight, guys. More great questions. We'll do it again tomorrow. I mean, this is some dog days for us every night, 7, sometimes 7:30, depending on what I've got going on out there. We do the recaps of practice and Q&As. Great questions, lots of fun. So if this was your first one, make sure you come back and we will see all of you tomorrow night. Football.